Okay, I think we'll make a start. The webinar's being recorded, and anyone who comes along late will be able to catch up by watching the recording at a later date. So firstly, some introductions. I'm Rik Page. I'm Sales and Marketing Director at Bluestream, and I've been involved with DITA for over 15 years. I think I'll let Tris introduce himself.
Yep, cheers, Rik. Hello, I'm Tristan. I'm Product Director at DeltaXML. I've been here, I think it's getting on for 17 years now. Done all sorts of jobs, been developer, been solutions architect, product manager, now product director. I've got a good in-depth knowledge of all our products and how some of our customers are using them. And I'll be talking about some of the technology behind what Rik's demoing later on.
Thanks, Tristan. I should also mention we're also joined by Jackie Crouch, who's business development at Bluestream, and Jackie will be following up with people after the webinar. So if we look quickly at the agenda, I'm going to show you how branch merge and release works within XDocs, and then Tristan is going to talk more about the underlying technology and explain how it can also be used outside of the CCMS environment and give some different insight or more insight into the products. So for people who don't know Bluestream, we've been around for quite a long time now. We have an enterprise class DITA CCMS called XDocs. We're unique from other vendors in so much as we do have our own delivery platform. And we've recently released our manufacturing suite, which provides really great support for companies in a manufacturing environment. Automatically builds things like illustrated parts catalogs and other documents, and is I think a really exciting development. Obviously, we've been around for so long. We've got customers all over the world and in every sector that you could possibly think of. Now, when we talk about branch merge and release, it falls under release management, and we generally, when we go out and we're talking to prospects, we come across typically these 7 use cases most often. And as you would expect, we can support all of these in a number of different ways. To be fair, if we didn't support all 7 of these very well, I obviously wouldn't have shared them with you. So from archiving a release of documentation, we can use labels, which we can create. And so we can create a publication as of any date and time in the past as well. Now, my aim here is that we're going to keep this as a relatively short webinar. So please come back with questions either during the discussion or afterwards. Email us and we will answer questions. So within branch and merge as we see it, here's a simple example of one way of doing it. And I know Tristan is actually going to talk about some different things, but typically within XDocs, we come across branch and merge where you're working on some documentation, you've got some documentation here, and you want to work on version 1.1 at the same time. So version 1 of the content lives here. And what we're going to do is we take a copy, put it up here, and then we can continue to work on our trunk. XDocs, we have this idea, the main content lives on the trunk, and you branch off. And so within the branch, someone could be working on the branch, and these are the topics are the same because it's the initial copy. But as this content is developed, some of the topics may change. And the problem you get with DITA really is some topics could change down here and some topics can change like that. Now, sometimes it's just a case of this has been updated, but sometimes the same topic is changed on the trunk and on the branch. And it's then that you need to be able to merge the content. If you just want the latest version, you may say that the version we've got on topic here is yellow. The grey one may be, so they need merging together. So how do we control that? And that's where DeltaXML comes into our product. And so you've reached this point where you have a merge situation. Technology shows you which topics have changed on the branch, which topics have changed on the trunk, and when the same topic has changed on the branch and the trunk, then we have the ability to examine the topics and decide what to accept, what changes to accept, what to reject. And it may be that you want to merge that together and update that topic on both releases, or you may still want to keep that separate for each release. So everything is supported very easily within the system. So how does that work or look in the real world? What I'm going to do is very quickly show you this. So this is the administration side of XDocs. It's, as you can see, it's a browser-based environment. We have this idea, we have branches, we set branches up here, and we have projects. So we have a branch project of phones 1, which is our branch from here. I've already set this up because there's nothing worse. You're going to have to watch me type, which is painful enough. But this is where we set our projects up and we set our branches up. Now, within the desktop version of XDocs, we use a folder system. So here we're in phones. That's our phones 2 project. And you can see we've got all these topics. And our branch, I've set up the branch partially. So we're going to branch here to phones 1. You can see at the moment it's got no topics. There's nothing in there. There's no content. But it's a really simple process. We go to branch, and what we want to do, as back to that diagram, we want to copy the content as it is now from phones 2 to phones 1. So we do a search for content. It brings a list of those topics. We copy the project files, and it will copy those project files over now into our phones 1 folder. So we now have, you won't see those until I go here and change to phones 1. But you see that now within phones 1, we've now got topics. So we've created that ready to use. So we're now at that situation where we've got content in our branch, and but we've also got content in our trunk, which is our content up here. So if I go back to phones 2 up here, and what I'm going to do is just make a couple of simple changes to some topics here. So if we open our getting started as a simple option, now this is using Oxygen editor, which we can make slightly more friendly by doing this. So we've opened this getting started topic. I just want to make a note of the topics I change because that makes it much harder. So if we just do and what you'll see here, if I've made a quick change, click save, and you'll see we've got an interface within Oxygen back to XDocs. So I'm going to check that document back in, which has done that. And now if I go and make another change, just to this again to edit. Really very, very simple. And again, you've got all this functionality within XDocs. We can check that in. Now, one of the nice things about this technology is it being able to see what changes you've made. So within XDocs, we have a little shortcut to manage versions. So here we can actually see what a particular, don't want that one. We can see what changes have been made between two versions. So you can see we've put here highlights, shows you that you've put the fully in rather than the text. So just a nice thing. So we've made changes to two topics within our trunk. If we now switch to the branch, which is down here, and we'll change the same topic on here, which will give us yet another version of the topic. Go somewhere else on here. So again, make a change to the document. If nothing else, this proves this is all working. So if we now go back to our branch here and I run that search again, this is going to bring out, highlight which topics have been changed within the system. So here you see we've got replace, the suggestion of replace, because within the trunk we've got a more up-to-date version of that topic than we have in the branch. But where it gets interesting is you see we've got this action of merge on the getting started topic, because we've made a change both on the trunk and on the branch. But what we can do here is we can view this, and you see and this is where we've got a massive benefit of using DeltaXML, which is an incredibly powerful tool, as I think you'll see when Tristan shows you. But we just use this track changes type view, so we can go through here. We can accept. I'll accept all of the changes. I could reject them if I wanted. So once I've accepted all of the changes, I want to save that copy now. I can now close it. It's saved, and then you see I can't just copy the files yet. I need to validate all the links. Obviously, massively important within DITA that we validate all of the links, which we've done. And now if we copy the project files, it's done. We've now got both the trunk and the branch fully up to date, and you can see how quick that process is to actually change from one to another, and actually maintain your information. And obviously what I could have done is I could copy that the other way as well and check, so we can it's all multi-directional as far as we go. So that's a very, very, very quick look at the XDocs side of things. I'm going to pass on to Tristan, which I should be able to do. If I pass you over to Tristan now, and you're now presenting, Tris.
That's great. Thank you, Rik. So just wanted to do a little quick introduction to DeltaXML if you don't know who we are, and then we'll get on to the topic of merge. And as Rik said, kind of explain the technology behind what he's just demoed, and then look at how you can use it for some other things as well. So as a company, DeltaXML has been going for about 30 years. Although we're kind of dealing almost exclusively with XML, actually, if you know your XML history, XML's not as old as our company. So before that, we were doing work on kind of printed circuit board designs, and our founder was working with a research group to develop a mechanism for finding changes in printed circuit boards. And actually then when XML came along in the late 90s, realized that you could use those same techniques to find changes in XML content. And that's where our first XML comparison product came along. And we've now got products for comparing, for merging, not just XML and all the different flavors of XML, but also other structured content, such as things like JSON. We've got customers across a range of industries, aviation and aerospace to publishing, finance, international and national standards bodies, and pharmaceuticals. So it's all sorts of different areas. We don't just deal with direct customers. but we also work with OEM partners, like this partnership we got with Bluestream, as well as other partners who are kind of building our products into projects for their own customers as well. So just on that point, a very quick overview of just some of the customers. It gives you a little bit of a flavor of our customer base. And XML is so widely used that we're used in all sorts of different companies, not just XML document content, but also data as well. So we're moving into that space more and more. Some big household names have been using our software for a long time, and they depend on its accuracy, its consistency, and its reliability within their own software. So I think that kind of speaks for itself, really. So on then to the topic of merge, and Rik demoed the kind of branch merge capability there in XDocs, and that's kind of one of the areas that we do with merge. It's always good to see that functionality being built into a CMS. It isn't there in all of them, and so to have it kind of sets it apart. I think it's good to see. And just to explain, as I say, the technology behind that a little bit, and how else that might get used. So this is an overview of our merge products. XDocs is using specifically DITA merge, but it's worth mentioning we do also have a generic XML merge product, which allows you to kind of merge any sort of XML content. They've both got the same underlying functionality, but DITA merge is aimed specifically at DITA topics. So the purpose of the merge product is to bring together 3 or more versions of the same document into a single document, and shows the changes between them. And there's lots of different ways to do that. I'm going to cover the different scenarios that we have later on, but each of them is essentially doing that same high-level task. It's bringing multiple versions into a single document. And in that XDocs use case that we just saw, that's branch merging, and it uses precisely 3 versions of the document. So there's the point at which you create the branch, and then you've got the tips of the 2 branches that are going to be merged together. We're going to go into the detail of that a little bit more later on. In terms of output for the products, we use a custom Delta format. It's the same format that we use for our comparison products as well. It's very concise. It's XML based, and it sits within the content itself. So it's just kind of a light layer built on top of your content. It's designed to be very easy to process using standard XML tools. So very easy to process using XSLT, for example. And all of our products use XSLT very extensively, and some of them allow you to insert your own custom XSLT filters at specific points in the processing, which allows you to kind of post-process the Delta to get it to show you just the changes you want to see, and in the way that you want to see them. So it's all very flexible. And as well as the Delta output, we also have, as you saw in the demo, we got produced results that highlight changes in oxygen track changes. So it's using their PI markup to highlight those changes. And then that allows you to open the results in Oxygen's author mode. You can view the changes, and you can manually use their kind of accept and reject feature, as you saw, to process those changes. And that can be really useful if you have a conflicting merge where you've got conflict resolution you need to do. The merge that Rik showed wasn't, although there were 2 changes in the same topic, it wasn't actually a conflict, so they weren't changed in the same place. But sometimes you do get conflicts, and there you really do tend to need to go in and have a look. You can configure the results to show different amounts of change. So sometimes you might want to see all of the changes. Sometimes you might want to see just conflicting changes, or you can kind of pick certain levels in between that. And it really depends on why you're merging in the first place. For this branch merge feature, we tend to replicate what happens in a version control system. So if you're familiar with those and the way that they work, they typically, you have non-conflicting changes are automatically merged, and it's only conflicts that you need to see in the result, which means that if you've got a merge with no conflicts, then that can be made into a completely automated operation with no need to kind of manually intervene. But conflict resolution is normally a manual process, meaning that an actual human being will need to go and look at the results and then make decisions on how best to resolve the conflicts, choosing between one version or the other, maybe even making additional edits on top of the accept and reject. if that's necessary once the choices have been made. It is technically possible to write rules for merge to automatically resolve the conflicts. So you might be able to set it up perhaps that if there are conflicts, then you would always use the changes that are coming in from the branch, or perhaps you'd always reject the changes that are coming in from the branch. But typically, if it's human readable content, then manual resolution is going to be the safest option to use, just so you can make sure that it still makes sense after those choices have been made. So one of the things that we often get asked when we're talking about merge is, what's the difference between two-way merge and three-way merge? And a lot of people actually assume that when we talk about merge, we're always talking about a two-way merge. But when it comes to merging branches together, we always recommend using three-way merge. And that's how version control systems tend to perform branch merges when you're merging code together. So it makes sense to use that same algorithm really for document content. It's the same principle. The reason that we recommend three-way is that it does actually make a difference to the result, but it's not always easy to understand how, and the difference between the two results can sometimes be quite subtle, but it's still very important when you're trying to merge one branch onto another to get the right type of merge. So in the diagram on this slide, you got the diagram on the left. It shows blue dots are a branch merge where only the tips are considered, and effectively it's running a comparison between them to create a merged version. That's a two-way merge. On the right-hand diagram, you're making use of this common ancestor. So that's sometimes called a branch point or the base, and that's used as part of the operation as well. And when you do that, actually, you're not comparing the tips together. You're actually comparing each of the tips against the ancestor file, and then you're merging the two sets of changes together, which creates your final merge result. So I'm going to try and demonstrate in a moment on the next slide how this can make a difference to the result. But I'm not going to go into too much detail. If you do want the finer detail on things, you're welcome to take a look at our website or get in touch with me for a follow-up discussion for if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of it. The reason that a two-way merge doesn't always work brilliantly is you don't retain the context of how each branch has changed since that point where they diverged. And sometimes that means you can miss information that's important on working out whether a particular change is a conflict or not. And in fact, in the two-way merge, you never really get any conflicts at all, which might seem like an attractive prospect, but sometimes that leads to the wrong merge result being the output, and you don't really want that. So I'm going to show you an example of how that happens, and hopefully this will be understandable. It's quite a lot on the slide, so if you've got it small, hopefully you'll be able to maybe get the recording and make it bigger later on. But let's work through this example. So I just mocked these up, but hopefully they demonstrate the principles. What I've done with the results is I've highlighted the results using text styling and coloring, which just shows that what would come out as track changes if you're looking at this in XDocs, for example. So up on the top left, we've got our base or ancestor document. That's very simple. It's just got a title. It's got 2 paragraphs. Then with the trunk has, what's that done? That's the main branch. That's made a few changes. It's modified this second paragraph with the word modified changed to updated, and then it's added these 3 new paragraphs here. And then the branch has done things slightly differently. In that version, this paragraph here has been deleted entirely, and it's only got 2 new paragraphs, the first of which is the same, and the second of which is slightly different from the one on the trunk. So if we do a two-way merge, that's effectively comparing the 2 tips against one another. That's this result, this two-way result on the left. And whether something's marked as added or deleted depends on which way round you compare those effectively. But this is comparing kind of the trunk as the original document, and then saying the new document is the branch. And we get the paragraph, so the paragraph that's got deleted on the branch, that's all we see. We just see a deletion. We don't get any information that also that was updated by the trunk. And then when we get the similar added paragraphs down here, we don't see that this paragraph was added as an addition, but we do see that there's a difference between the two branch tips. The final paragraph is quite interesting because in this two-way result, it's seen as a deletion in the branch, rather than the fact that it was added by the trunk. You just see it as a deletion because you've got that two-way and you've got no context of the original base. So if we were to accept all of these changes, we'd essentially be left with the same version as the branch tip, which is quite likely to be the incorrect result. You probably want to retain the paragraph that was added only by the trunk here. But if we were to accept all of these changes, it would disappear because it's shown as deleted. So if we look at the three-way result, then we've got the context of that ancestor or base file, and we get some conflicts. But the benefit of having conflicts, and yes, it is a benefit, is that it gives us the ability to make a reasonable choice based on the information that we're given. So first, there's non-conflicting stuff. We've got the paragraph that was added exactly the same in both. That just gets shown as a simple addition. It's a non-conflicting addition, and by default, that just kind of gets accepted. And the final paragraph down here, added by just the trunk. Again, this now is marked as an addition, but it's a non-conflicting addition. So again, it goes through as kind of automatically accepted if you've got that mode set on. And then looking at the conflicts, now we can understand that actually there was an update by the trunk and there was a deletion by the branch. And so we just need to resolve it some way. You can't do both of those things, but it's better to know that that's what's happened than on this left-hand side of the two-way, just automatically accepting the deletion by the branch, because it may be that we want to keep the trunk's update version instead. And then again, the second conflict is similar. This time we've got a conflicting addition. Both of them are added, but we've got to make a choice about which version we use. Do we use this text or this text? So it's fair to say that you don't always get into conflicting situations. Obviously, I created this so it's got conflicts just to show you how they come out. Yes, sometimes the two-way merge gives you effectively the same outcome after you've accepted everything as the three-way merge might do. But there are cases where it doesn't. And in those cases, it's really important to go through that conflict resolution to ensure that you're getting exactly the merge result that you want. So just want to go through then, that's kind of the detail about why three-way is better than two-way, particularly for branch merging. I just wanted to really quickly go through some of the other merge scenarios that we cover. And the three scenarios, as you can see here, we've got concurrent merge, we've got sequential merge, and we've got the three-way merge that we've already taken a look at. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of each one. But again, if you want to go into any more detail, feel free to contact me afterwards. So the concurrent merge is very similar to three-way merge. In fact, three-way merge is effectively a very specific type of concurrent merge that happens to have precisely three inputs. And like branch merging, concurrent merge starts off with that common ancestor file. That's the one at the top there. And then that's edited by multiple editors simultaneously. So maybe you've got a really large document with lots of sections, and you want people to work on different sections at the same time. Or maybe you want a whole panel of experts to take a document and make their suggested edits, so you get a kind of balanced view from lots of people all making different suggestions. And concurrent merge takes the ancestor and it takes all of those edits as inputs, and it merges all of the changes together. Again, comparing each edit against the original ancestor, merges all those changes together into a single file, just like three-way merge, but here now potentially with many more versions. And again, you can set it up to choose to see all of the changes or just the conflicting changes. And having gone through that conflict resolution, if necessary, you effectively end up with a new version of the document. Sequential merge is slightly different. It's a different concept for how the merge works. So rather than comparing each version against a common ancestor, this time each version is compared to the previous version. So in this scenario, you've got a document and it passes from one person to the next person to the next person, and they each make changes and then pass it on. And merge takes each of those intermediate versions, you put them in order as inputs, and then the result is effectively some kind of edit history, or perhaps even an audit trail of how the document changed across different versions. So we sometimes call that a traveling draft, because the document kind of travels from one editor to the next until it's eventually completed. So that's still using merge, but it's a slightly different algorithm and a different concept and a different result that you get out. It's got a different purpose. And then finally, we've already looked at it, but just to cover three-way merge again, this is the scenario that is used for branch merging. It is a form of concurrent merge, but because we know that there are exactly 3 inputs, we can do some additional processing on the result to produce different output formats like the track changes. They tend to be designed more for 2-way differences, but we can use them in this 3-way mode just to kind of provide that accept reject functionality on the result, which is very useful. So hopefully that's given you a flavor of what merge products can do. Besides branch merging, but if you do, as I say, if you want to know any more detail or discuss a specific merge scenario in more depth, then get in touch with me. So just finally wanted to highlight that we have got other products as well. As well as merge, we've got 2-way comparison products for various different flavors of XML. We've got generic ones, we've got format specific ones. So as well as DITA merge, we've got DITA compare. We've got a docbook compare as well if you're using docbook content. And then we've got kind of generic tools for comparing and merging documents as well as comparing data. And we've also slightly started to move outside of the XML space, still staying within the realm of structured content though. We've got JSON products, which give you kind of compare and merge functionality for JSON as well. So again, if you want to talk about any of that, get in touch, ask a question. And that really is all I wanted to share with you. As I say, there's quite a lot of detail. So if you do have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Tris. Very interesting. We've got some questions. Just need to turn the chats on. I think that may make it easier if anyone's actually got any questions to ask us. There was one question about when this is a XDocs related question about when you work in the topic, can you know right away if that topic is used somewhere else, or is it the second step in the branch tab? On this occasion, it's the second. It's picked up on the second step, because what we actually did there is we made a copy of the entire topic set and moved it into its own environment. I think there's a way of tracking that, but I have to confess I'm not quite sure how it is. What I will do is I know the person who's asked that question, so I will get back to you via email if there is another way around that. There's some more questions coming in now. And this one is, are the resources about the file output that DeltaXML creates for its diff?
Yeah, so that's the Delta format. We've got content on our website. We've got videos explaining that. We've got pages that document the different attributes and elements we use for that markup. I'm hoping, Rik, you'll be able to give me contact details and I can send that to you directly. I can send you specific.
Absolutely, we'll share all the contact details with you and Bridget. Yeah. So,
but if you go on our website and search for Delta format, then you should be able to find something there. In the meantime, but I will make a note of sending that to you specifically.
Yeah. Right, trying to see. There's another question. No, we're short on questions. So.
So well explained. That's what it was, Rik.
I think we've obviously done this before, Tristan. That must be the thing. So
or everyone's in shock.
yeah, that was possibly could well have been my typing that did that. It has been known to have that effect on people. So, like I said, we've recorded this presentation, so it will be put up on the website. So we'll drop you an email when that is available. We're trying to keep these webinars short so that people don't feel they're sat here and giving up, half their day listening to us go on in too much depth. But we're both here in order to answer more in-depth questions, take conversations offline. So please do reach out. Lastly, Jackie will be reaching out to everybody as well. So if you can come back, any questions, if you feel them back through Jackie, she will send them on to me or to Tristan, and we'll give you good answers, I hope. But just leaves me to say thank you very much for spending the time to look at this. I hope you found it was interesting. I hope you found the shortness of it beneficial. And I look forward to meeting you. Now we're actually meeting people in person. I'm actually presenting in Stockholm at TCOM, Nordic TCOM next month. So, and again in DITA, what was DITA North America in Tempe in May. So it will be nice to actually start to see people again after 2 years. So thank you very much. Tristan, do you want to add anything?
No, I don't think so. Just to say, well, to reiterate, thank you very much for listening, and be in touch with me. I'm Tristan.Mitchell@DeltaXML.com. I should have put my email address on there, shouldn't I? But there we are.
Yeah, you mean. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Cheers.